Recently I found this game called
Fap Nights and Frennies.
and I have become obsessed with it. Why do you ask? Well, FAPNAF has a surprisingly high amount of lore,
Listen to me carefully. Go and fuck yourself.
8 hours of gameplay or more if you have ADHD, lots of banger songs and banger characters, the animatronics do get a bit quirky at night, gambling addiction, Bonfi, the bad purple bunny, and lots of minigames. Among said minigames, there's one called Hopping Time. It's basically Dino Run but cooler. Will you be my mommy? Anyway, I've played it a lot and one thing that I have noticed is that this game isn't hard. However, I have limited eyes and they are required to blink. To get the highest achievement, you need a score of 5000. It takes roughly 7 minutes of uninterrupted attention span, something that I clearly struggle with. After a lot of suffering and hours of missed sleep that I'll probably never recover from, I've got the score. And also decided to put my programming skills to good use and see if I could train AI to play the game. And maybe, very maybe, beat my score. So without further ado, it's bonfing time.
I am bonfing it. I'm bonfing it so good. Oh, you need to go. Oh, for the arcade.
Now, the usual approach to train an AI for this type of game would be through reinforcement learning, which is basically rewarding the agent when it does something good and punishing it when it does something bad. The problem is that reinforcement learning takes a lot of time and tries to work. I would need to remake the entire minigame from scratch, or pry into the code and see if I could run it, or wait until the heat death of the universe. That is tiresome, and I don't have all that free time. Instead, I use an image classifier called Yolo to detect objects on the screen, and then trains tiny neural networks to mimic my behavior based on recorded gameplays. In theory, that sounds simple, but if you know anything about AIs, you know that they need a lot of data to work. Data or data, I have no idea how I should say it. For the gameplays, that is indeed simple. All I have to do is sit on a chair and, well, push buttons. But for the objects on the screen, things get a bit trickier cause I have to label all of them at least once. And boy oh boy, we have objects. There are 5 arcade machines, 2 tables, a gambler's nightmare, a very useful vending machine, this thing that I can only assume is a box, a bat in 3 different positions, and 10 cartoon sprites with and without a guitar. Needless to say, if I were to label 100 plus images with 33 different things, I would abstract. And you may ask, what about the spinning guitar? We don't talk about the spinning guitar. So the least painful way that I came up with to build a dataset was to screenshot, crop, and remove the background of each of the sprites that are recorded from my gameplays, and then use a template matching algorithm to automatically detect them, or most of them at least. The way vanilla template matching works is by running a sliding window through the screen trying to find the locations with the least mean squared error. The problem is that this would take a long time for 33 things, and it's not guaranteed that an object would be detected unless its window fully overlapped.
What is it?
So I used an improved version of the algorithm that I made to automate fishing on Atlas. And yes, I know I could just alter my fishing level on the character JSON files, but it's not about how easy it is to do something. It's about sending a message. It uses fast Fourier transform to search the entire image at once on the frequency domain. All that combining 2 filters. Mean squared error to get the most similar regions, and Laplace transform to match the edges of the objects. I really love Laplace transform. You can take a look at this and say that this isn't cool. It's my emotional support digital image processing filter. In the end, my algorithm performed fairly well. Out of 1000 images, 767, and I swear I didn't force that number, were good to go. Filtering the bad apples though was another entire can of worms. After doing that, I finally could train my Yolo. Now with Yolo trained, what took more than a second with template matching can run at 20 FPS locally with a much more desirable precision. I'm looking at you, 92% detected bat. And just in case you're wondering why I'm using the tiniest Yolo classifier available, which is barely 5 megabytes of weights and limiting its FPS, well, you see, due to reasons beyond my understanding, neither TensorFlow nor PyTorch recognize my GPU. I already tried lots of stuff but nothing worked, so CPU it is. The next logical step is to mimic my behavior using neural networks. To do that, we gotta define first what will be the inputs and outputs of our beloved clankers. After a very in-depth analysis, I determined that the best inputs to describe the game environment would be the amount of obstacles on the screen, how far we are from the closest one, how wide and tall it is, if there is any space under, and how fast we're moving. And as for the outputs, I made separate networks, each to answer a very specific question. When should we jump? When should we crouch? For how long? And does it clap? If you manage to solve this puzzle, you probably already know the answer to that, so let's just go with 3 networks for now. 2 classifiers to know when to jump or crouch, and a regressor to learn for how many seconds to do so. And yes, I know I'm using a very simple architecture and it could be improved in a trillion different ways, like using the score as a time unit, feeding the screen itself as an input through convolutional layers, or even combining it with LSTM for a better temporal understanding. But you'd need to make extra sure that the time intervals are regular, and would probably also need more gameplays to train, so at this point a reinforcement learning algorithm would almost certainly do better. Therefore, I'll leave that as an exercise for the reader. And as for the data, I used the frames up to 0.45 seconds before the player made each action. Any earlier than that, and the AI started making moves ahead of time. Also, it's really important to balance your dataset, especially in this case where our classifiers will have roughly 13 idle examples for each action one.
I have no network and I must connect.
And the results were nice. The classifiers did a good job predicting when to act, and the regressor, well, regressed. Well done. Now it's time to gather everything and finish the agent.
Capybara.
Yolo keeps running constantly in the background at 20 FPS looking for sprites. When the player and at least one obstacle are visible, we check if there's a gap spacey enough to make it through. If said gap exists, then we run both the crouch classifier and regressor to know when and for how long to do that. Otherwise, we just run the jump classifier and wait for it to trigger. This logic setup was able to do the trick. The agent went on for quite a while. I'll play a speeded up version of it while I present curious facts about Baobab trees for our severely attention challenged friends, myself included. Their trunk is composed of around 80% water, which helps them be fire resistant and earns the nickname Tree of Life. Some people also call them upside down trees because, well, the resemblance is uncanny. And there's also a legend that says that Baobabs were trees who liked to complain a lot, so their makers put them upside down as revenge, just like the ant eater situation.
Why do you trees storm at me? I shouldn't have created you.
The biggest ones can store up to 120,000 liters of water, that's why they are so chubby. It's believed that they originated in Madagascar 21 million years ago, but they're also native to Africa and Australia. Some very cool people who I have no idea who they were because it was centuries ago planted a few ones here in Brazil too. I like hugging them. There are 8 different species of baobabs, and some of them are so big that people use them as shelters. The tallest one is Adansonia grandieri, reaching up to 30 meters or 100 feet for our non-metric people out there. They can live for more than 2,000 years. In fact, the oldest one lived for 2,450 years, and yet their flowers only remain reproductively active for 15 hours. Bats help pollinating them. Bonus unrelated fact, bats can see better than us. And bees make honey. The baobabs also produce a fruit, which is edible and rich in vitamin C, calcium, and fiber. I don't know if the next one counts as a fact or an observation, but from what I've seen, they tend to have L-shaped roots, so maybe they were the square roots all along. I may have a mild hyperfixation on those trees, and may also have spent a considerable amount of time of my day searching up those facts. This concludes my presentation. Now back to the AI, it was able to reach up to 2458 points. Despite being slightly less than halfway through the Golden Door achievement, it's still surprising that it could go on for almost 4 minutes bunny. Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power. They will never be bees. There's a lot of tweaking that could be done in order to reach higher scores, but as I mentioned, that would require more advanced strategies, which involve time and effort that I do not want to invest at the moment. So let's just call it a day. Little bunny in the void. Game over. Set free. That's it. I am returning to human society. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Do it now. Bye.